While some moviegoers might argue that the perfect scene doesn't exist, quite a few Marvel movies come darn close to proving that argument wrong. Buckle up, because we're diving headfirst into the most memorable, iconic, and practically flawless scenes in the MCU. Iron Man is a masterpiece of a movie. Robert Downey Jr.'s performance as Tony Stark is exactly what the MCU needed to gain some momentum right out of the gate.
Yeah, peace. I love peace. I'll be out of a job with peace.
While it's a great experience from one end to the other, though, there's one scene that stands out above the rest. We're talking about Stark's emergence from captivity, decked out in the towering first version of his Iron Man suit, the Mark I. The clunky armor is a rough start compared to the nanotech that Stark eventually creates. It gets stuck in the wall and requires a handmade spark to launch its missiles. And it's not exactly durable, but it's all he needs to blow that popsicle stand and then hightail it out of there, leaving the astonished survivors of the 10 Rings in the rearview mirror. The death of Yinsen adds some emotional fuel to the fire too, as he implores Stark not to waste his life.
Thank you for saving me.
Don't waste it. Don't waste your life.
The emergence of the MCU's first bona fide superhero was pulled off with a precision that simultaneously cut to the quick and had us on our feet cheering. Sometimes it's an unspoken understanding between characters that makes a scene truly flawless. Few action movie moments have done this as well as Steve Rogers' reckless sacrifice at training camp, when he throws himself on a grenade that he doesn't know is a dummy. This moment in Captain America, the First Avenger, punctuates a debate between Colonel Chester Phillips and Dr. Abraham Erskine about who should be recruited as the first super soldier in their program. Phillips casually tosses the grenade into the midst of the new recruits, at which point everyone scrambles. The one exception? Rogers.
Get away!
The scene is a splendid illustration of Rogers' ideals, all wrapped into a single action. Compare that to the moment in Endgame when he faces down Thanos' entire army, or the numerous occasions in which he professed that he could, quote, do this all day. That guy started as a skinny fella with a heart of gold, ready to jump on a grenade if that's what was required. Even a superheroic transformation, decades spent frozen in ice, and cosmic confrontations with unimaginable evil couldn't take that away from him. Everything hits the fan when Thanos arrives on the scene in Avengers: Infinity War. While Endgame would eventually even the score by dusting the Mad Titan and seeing the good guys back on top, its predecessor marks one of the first times Marvel actually ended things on a sour note. And we mean a really sour note. The story comes to a fever pitch as Thanos plucks the Mind Stone out of Vision's forehead, completing his gauntlet, and then snaps his fingers after Thor fails to finish him off. The sequence that follows takes us across the universe, showing the effects of the snap as half of all life in existence crumbles to ashes on the spot. One moment on Titan is particularly emotional as Spider-Man bids a desperate farewell to his mentor, Tony Stark. Back on Earth, Steve Rogers' slow realization that they have just lost is just as moving, as he sits, slumped on the ground in defeat with his friends turned to dust around him. While it may not be fun, the Decimation is one of the most flawlessly executed moments in the entire MCU. Directors Joe and Anthony Russo have brought us many of the MCU's most compelling moments, and their work makes it onto this list more than once. A particular highlight, though, is the Captain America Civil War's climactic confrontation. The final moments of the film see Steve Rogers and Bucky Barnes face off against a furious Tony Stark, who has just discovered that it was none other than a brainwashed Barnes himself who killed his parents. The scene is set against a cold, hard backdrop of snow and stone as the heroes tangle through an abandoned Cold War facility in Siberia. Stark's superior armor seems to put him at an advantage, but it's ultimately Rogers' attitude that helps him defeat the Iron Avenger by putting a shield through his arc reactor. From stellar cinematography to the wrenching emotional conflict to the choreography of the fight itself, everything about this scene is a home run. Michael Rooker's Yondu Udanta steals the show for a lot of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. However, the scene in which he stages a jailbreak and then retakes his entire ship with the help of Rocket and Baby Groot is particularly priceless. The scene, cheekily set to the needle drop of Jay and the Americans Come a Little Bit Closer, perfectly embodies the spirit of the Guardians franchise. Irreverent, careless, mindlessly violent, unpredictable, self-destructive, and downright hilarious. The sequence shows Yondu's arrows speed around the ship, hunting his mutinous crew one by one until he finally takes out Taserface, and the entire ship to boot. The legendary feat firmly establishes Yondu as a Mary Poppins tier hero, y'all, and just in time for him to make the sacrifice play as the film wraps up. The scene is deliciously tongue-in-cheek and masterfully leaves the audience struggling with a brand of morbid humor that only James Gunn can so casually invoke.
You maniac!
The airport fight scene in Captain America: Civil War is incredible on so many levels. Though they've fought one-on-one plenty of times, this is the one and only occasion that the MCU's heroes have taken each other on as teams, and it's positively dripping with quality action beats. Naturally, the fighting is preceded by some light banter, because even at their lowest points, Marvel's heroes can't contain their sarcasm. Once the joking is finished, though, the divided group gets down to business, and boy is it fun to watch.
Underoos!
Nice job, kid.
Thanks.
The scene has Tom Holland's Spider-Man swinging into action for the first time, even nabbing Cap's shield while he's at it. Scarlet Witch continues to showcase her impressive power set as well, and newcomer T'Challa cuts a dashing figure in his vibranium Black Panther suit. Even Ant-Man makes a huge splash by transforming into Giant Man and wrecking everything in his path. The thrilling moments just keep coming with this one. From start to finish, the airport fight is one of the most exciting and funniest action sequences that the MCU has ever produced.
I'm really sorry.
You couldn't have done that earlier? I hate you.
Thor's character has come a long way since those early Phase 1 days. While his second solo outing, Thor: The Dark World, is not exactly a fan favorite, the God of Thunder's story had new life breathed into it with Thor: Ragnarok. In this wild adventure, the hero finds himself stranded and enslaved on the garbage planet of Sakaar. This ultimately leads to his being forced to don armor and enter a gladiatorial arena to face the Grandmaster's champion, who turns out to be none other than Hulk. The entire scene in the arena is perfectly executed. From Thor's
Hey! Hey! We know each other! He's a friend from work!
line to the movie's nod to everybody's favorite scene from Avengers, to Thor and Hulk's raucous brawl that ends with the so-called Lord of Thunder electrifying the Jade Giant before being incapacitated by his obedience disc. The scene also serves as a sweet shout-out to Hulk's own Planet Hulk story from the comics, all while kicking off his own three-part story arc of self-discovery within the MCU. The first Avengers movie follows Earth's mightiest heroes as they get together for the first time, iron out their differences, and stop a Chitauri invasion of New York City led by Thor's trickster brother Loki. With so many great scenes unfolding throughout the film, though, there's one that has to be called out every time: the shot of the 6 heroes suited up together in the ruined streets of the Big Apple. With a portal open above the city and the fate of the world at stake, the team finally gets their act together just in time for one of Steve Rogers' first great moments as a leader of the Avengers. With Tony Stark's blessing, Cap takes charge, assigning roles to each hero and helping contain the unfolding disaster long enough for the Iron Avenger to fly an inbound missile through the wormhole to wrap things up.
And Hulk. Smash.
But it all starts with that one shot, circling around the 6 heroes as they stand, back to back, ready to fight and die doing their duty. Marvel had been building to that exact moment for 4 straight years, and it serves as a perfect crescendo. The MCU has a lot of last-minute arrivals and nick-of-time heroic entrances that make you want to get up out of your chair and start cheering at the top of your lungs. But there's one scene in particular that has to make it onto the short list of greats: Thor's arrival in Wakanda in Avengers: Infinity War. After spending the bulk of the movie off on his own side quest in search of a new weapon, the God of Thunder's arrival on the battle-swept plains of Wakanda is literally electrifying. It breathes new life into his allies and utterly terrifies his enemies, those that don't get blown to smithereens within the first few seconds at least. His added war cry of
Bring me Thanos!
sends shivers down the spine as he charges into the fray with Stormbreaker in hand. The entire event is an optimistic beat in a movie that generally grows ever bleaker from the beginning onward, and the thrilling change of pace is inserted into the narrative at the perfect moment. Sometimes the best scenes come in the form of unexpected sidebars between characters. In Thor Ragnarok, the tensions are high when Thor is thrown into the Grandmaster's prison after arriving on Sakaar. He knows that he must face a champion and still somehow find a way to stop his sister Hela. And yet, with so much at stake, the narrative pauses to introduce two new lovable characters, Horg and Meek, fellow gladiators who quickly bond with the Asgardian.
Made of rocks, as you can see, but don't let that intimidate you. You don't need to be afraid unless you're made of scissors. Just a little rock, paper, scissors joke for you.
Upon their first meeting, Thor arrives in the Freaky Circle. Korg informs the God of Thunder about his newfound captivity, fills him in on the numerous details about himself and his friend Meek, and even goes off on a tangent about a failed revolution that he tried to start up.
Oh, well, I tried to start a revolution but didn't print enough pamphlets, so hardly anyone turned up, except for my mum and her boyfriend, who I hate.
The impressive thing about the scene is how seamlessly it's woven into the greater story, casually introducing two lighthearted characters who end up having a massive impact on Thor's destiny. Winter Soldier gradually turns up the tension as Captain America begins to realize the full extent to which S.H.I.E.L.D. has been infiltrated by Hydra. It all comes to a head during a long elevator ride. The slow tension of the scene ramps up beautifully as Cap stands, hands crossed, while more and more bruisers step onto the lift, filling it up to maximum capacity. His line,
"Before we get started, does anyone want to get out?"
is the perfect kickoff to a fight of claustrophobically epic proportions. Within moments, Rogers takes on the entire elevator, carpeting the floor with his opponent's knocked-out bodies. The final line, quote, "It kind of feels personal," followed by the kick and catch of his shield, is pure gravy for a scene that leaves no doubt that Steve Rogers is a guy you don't want to mess with. He may be soft and warm on the outside, but backed into a corner or an elevator, the guy simply can't be brought down.
I could do this all day.
Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more Looper videos about the MCU are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.